It was a non-basketball play. That is clear. It was not within the realm of basketball. It was a shove. She was frustrated. She was upset.
Arafin just took down MAGA Barbie. That MAGA Barbie still made her look like a fool. 21 points to her 7. Looks like Sophie got the last laugh. It's one thing to be physical. It's another thing to be slinging people on the floor.
Oh my God. Sophie's a dog.
What just exploded on the WNBA court is something nobody saw coming. Moments ago, chaos erupted when Caitlin Clark's fearless teammate, Sophie Cunningham, was viciously assaulted by Washington Mystics player Kiki Iriafen.
They are already now attacking Sophie Cunningham. Oh, they're mad. The MAGA Barbie's got them angry. Need Kiki to whack her again. They're cheering on violence against this basketball player.
In one of the dirtiest plays we've seen all season. But here's where things flipped. Instead of backing down, Sophie Cunningham stood her ground and absolutely destroyed her attacker right on the hardwood.
A lot of things have come out now about the Mystics and that really, really absurd where multiple players went after Sophie Cunningham. Number one, Sophie owned their asses on the court yesterday.
The crowd went wild, the game shifted, and Indiana Fever fans witnessed a statement that can't be ignored. You don't mess with Sophie Cunningham.
Sophie Cunningham just got through by a rookie. This is the worst part of the WNBA. It is. The smiles afterward, let's get negative. These people are loving this.
Stay tuned, because we're breaking down every second of this explosive confrontation and what it means for Caitlin Clark, the Fever, and the entire WNBA.
Caitlin Clark was crapped on all last year. Caitlin Clark was the recipient of plays that were non-basketball plays. Kennedy Carter is a good example. And I don't think the Fever should be allowed to just be hit and thrown to the ground or any of those things.
From the very first whistle, it was clear the Washington Mystics weren't just trying to play basketball. They came out swinging with one mission in mind: take out Indiana Fever's enforcer, Sophie Cunningham.
I mean, after last season, I can't say I'm shocked. So now the Indiana Fever officially have 2 players in the crosshairs of these chicks in the league.
Just minutes into the first quarter, the game took a violent turn when Mystics forward Kiki Iriafen charged directly at Sophie.
Oh, can't criticize. That's racism. Wait, what?
In a move that crossed every line of physical play, Iriafen grabbed Sophie by the shoulder, wrapped her up, and slammed her down hard onto the court. Sophie hit the hardwood with a thud, her body twisting awkwardly as the arena gasped in shock. But before anyone could blink, Sophie Cunningham sprang right back to her feet.
And she is going to be an absolute steal for the Indiana Fever, because not only does she bring a level of toughness and tenacity that the team needed, but there's a certain level of spiciness with Sophie Cunningham, but she's also the best perimeter playmaker on the team outside of Caitlin Clark.
There was no hesitation, no backing down. She got in Iriafen's face, her eyes blazing, and barked out loud and clear, "You don't mother effing do that!" The raw emotion exploded through the arena, echoing loud enough to be heard over the broadcast mics. Even Mystics fans couldn't help but react.
So Brittany Sykes, here we go. If you're a Sticks fan, better stay that way. Bandwagon's gonna be full before you know it, acting like Kennedy Carter on the court.
A roar erupted from the stands as everyone realized Sophie was not going to be intimidated. Referees rushed in to separate the 2 players, but by then, the tone of the game had been set. What Kiki Iriafen thought would shake Sophie only ignited her fire.
She's yelling while Kiki's laughing in her face. Never seen a rook have a vet so rattled. Yeah, let's celebrate violence.
Instead of folding, Sophie channeled the attack into fuel.
You know, Cunningham is able to shoot the ball from deep. She can score in that way, of course. She's strong, can finish through contact, and she's able to set others up, not to mention the fact that she moves without the basketball.
Her body language grew more aggressive, her eyes locked in, and her focus sharpened. And right there, the Mystics made their first fatal mistake. Their plan to rattle Sophie Cunningham had completely backfired. Not only did Sophie refuse to be bullied, she sent an unmistakable message.
The Mystics refused to shake the hands of the Fever players after the game. This league is just ate up with class. The classless players and acts across this league.
If you come for me, you better be ready to deal with the consequences. After that opening blow from Kiki Iriafen, you'd think the Mystics might pull back. Maybe try to cool the aggression and focus on actual basketball. But no, instead, they doubled down. What followed was nothing short of a coordinated campaign to take Sophie Cunningham out of the game. Mentally, physically, emotionally. She wasn't just getting fouled. She was getting hunted.
You go in and ball out against these chicks in the WNBA, they get mad and they get their feelings hurt. And so instead of turning to basketball and defense, we'll turn to violence.
It started with Brittany Sykes, a defensive specialist with a reputation for walking the line between intense and dirty. Sykes locked onto Sophie like a heat-seeking missile.
So Brittany Sykes, here we go. If you're a Sticks fan, better stay that way. Bandwagon's gonna be full before you know it. Acting like Kennedy Carter on the court.
Every possession, she was in her face, throwing shoulders, shoving off screens, whispering trash talk so venomous it had fans in the front row turning their heads.
Oh my God, Sophie's a dog. She just is, she's a competitor. She's versatile, so she allows us to do different things. Like, she plays with such toughness. She's huge, and she's going to be for us all season long. But what she brings from an energy standpoint, she raises the level of play of everybody around her as soon as she steps foot on the floor. Hell, even on the sideline. I mean, her communication, everything. She's definitely an X factor.
Then came Dana Evans, who joined the fray with even more jawing and contact. It was like Sophie had a target on her back, and the entire Mystics roster was treating her like she didn't belong on that court. But here's the twist. Sophie never flinched. Every bump, every stare down, every whispered insult, she absorbed it. And then she started firing back the only way that matters, with buckets. With defenders hanging on her like backpacks, Sophie rose up and drilled a clutch three-pointer that silenced the DC crowd. Then another. And then she crashed the boards with pure fury, snagging rebounds in traffic, refusing to be boxed out.
A few Fever players were waving because they were expecting a handshake line. Mystics players went straight to the locker room. That is really, really poor sportsmanship.
She took the contact, spun through defenders, and still found ways to finish around the rim. This wasn't just resistance. This was retaliation through excellence. At one point, after hitting a huge shot and getting fouled with no whistle, she stared directly at the ref with a deadpan expression that said everything. So this is how it's going to be? But still, she didn't lose control. She didn't retaliate with violence. She retaliated with precision. And slowly, the Mystics started to realize something chilling. Nothing was working. Their attempts to intimidate her were fueling her. Their trash talk, she fed off it. Their cheap fouls, she outworked them. And with every play, the Fever bench got louder. Caitlin Clark included, standing up, fist in the air.
The gap between Caitlin Clark and Sydney Colson as an on-ball player and distributor and everything else cannot really be measured. And the Fever got off to a rough start with Colson leading the show, and it wasn't until Cunningham got into the game that they got an injection of life.
Yelling in support of her teammate. Sophie wasn't just fighting for herself now. She was fighting for the team, and they were rising with her. By the time the dust began to settle, Sophie's stat line told the story the box score couldn't.
34 minutes, 6 of 11 from the field, 54%, 21 points, 8 rebounds. She's been an absolute beast in this game.
21 points despite facing constant double teams and contact. 8 rebounds battling in the trenches with post players who tried to body her. And maybe most important, unshaken focus. No matter what the Mystics threw at her, she stood tall. Not once did she backpedal. Not once did she beg for a call. She let her game speak louder than their mouths ever could.
CDS Sports Podcast. Sykes is like Carter, and the coach has been very unimpressive as a person. Dirty, classless, no professionalism, bad look.
In that moment, Sophie Cunningham wasn't just Caitlin Clark's teammate. She was the enforcer, the fighter, the symbol of resilience, the one who turned a dirty game into a masterclass in mental toughness.
Like, we got to make sure that we're not putting Caitlin at risk for injury. We're not putting our team in a position, where we're thinking short term and not long term. It's a long season, 4 more games than last season. So we want to make sure that we're extra cautious and put our health and wellness first and foremost. And honestly, it's been one day at a time. How she's reacted to the treatment how she's reacted to workouts. So positive progress is being made, but we can't be short-sighted.
By the time the fourth quarter rolled around, the Washington Mystics weren't just bruised physically, they were unraveling mentally. What started as an all-out attack on Sophie Cunningham had officially backfired, and the scoreboard was starting to reflect that shift. The aggressors, falling one by one, Kiki Iriafen, the same player who violently slammed Sophie to the ground in the opening minutes, was now racking up fouls, and then it happened. With 5 minutes left on the clock, Iriafen picked up her 6th personal foul. The whistle blew. She froze. Then in disbelief and frustration, she was forced to walk off the court, her impact completely neutralized.
Caitlin seemed pretty active on the bench today. Just what was her leadership like, just kind of on the sidelines? And do you have a status for her for tomorrow as well?
Yeah, first of all, her communication was outstanding. Seeing different things on the floor and being able to communicate that in huddle. I heard a lot of different voices, but when you're not playing, it gives you a different perspective. And I felt like she did a really good job of that with her teammates, and she did a really good job of that with us in the coaching staff. Just different things that she's seeing, different pointers for us in terms of maybe even communication style. I thought she was really engaged, and I felt like at one point she wanted to go back and put her uniform on and come out and play. As far as status update, she had a lot of progress in the last 24 hours, and that was our goal. Our goal is to see how she progresses every day. So we'll see what happens and see how she feels after the workouts that she went through today. And then hopefully she'll be ready to go tomorrow.
The same player who started the chaos was now out of the game, defeated by her own strategy. Meanwhile, the Indiana Fever bench erupted, not with taunts, but with unity. And leading that emotional charge, Caitlin Clark.
What's going on with that? How are you doing today?
Just a little tightness. I'll go through all our warm-ups and everything, and then they'll decide if I'm good to go or not, but it'll be the medical team visit.
What do you hope to get out of this?
I think just getting the feel of playing with new teammates. This is basically a new roster. You look up and down. Obviously, you got 5 players back, but other than that, you're trying to build chemistry with your teammates. And it can be the rotations. Nobody's going to play a ton of minutes. It's kind of just going out there and getting the feel. We've been going against each other, going against our practice guys, but it's fun to actually go up against another WNBA team and really get a gauge of where you're at.
The superstar rookie, sidelined for rest, wasn't just watching, she was fully locked in. Every time Sophie nailed a shot, took a hit, or forced a turnover, Caitlin was up on her feet, shouting, fist-pumping, leading from the sideline like a seasoned veteran. You could see it in her face. This wasn't just a win for Sophie. This was personal for the entire team. Sophie's courage was infectious. Nalissa Smith started hammering the paint. Aaliyah Boston turned up the defense.
Talking to someone, does that come naturally to this group, or is that everyone kind of following that message from Saturday?
I think it comes from everybody. Even with Caitlin being out today, her PG leadership was vital. Down the stretch when we were losing, we heard her voice, we heard how in tune that she was. And so I think over the course of time, it'll be kind of you don't have to even think about the communication part. But I think right now for us to get through these games, communication is heavy. Even from the ones that's not playing or what you still have it. So it's important.
The Fever's ball movement sharpened, their energy surged, and suddenly the Mystics were on their heels, bickering with refs, arguing among themselves, and losing control. Let's be clear, this wasn't just a comeback, it was a statement. Because the more the Mystics tried to beat the Fever with brute force, the more they exposed their own weakness. Their game plan wasn't basketball, it was bullying. And when that failed, they had nothing left to fall back on. Sophie Cunningham, who entered the game as a supporting player, had now become the centerpiece of a full team uprising.
The Indiana Fever have another star, Sophie Cunningham.
She didn't just absorb the attacks, she turned them into momentum. Her fire lit up the court, and the entire Fever squad rose around her. And here's the kicker. This wasn't just about revenge. It was about respect. Sophie didn't retaliate with dirty plays. She didn't collapse under pressure. She played smarter, tougher, and louder. With her game, she showed the league what real toughness looks like. No drama, no flopping, just cold, calculated dominance.
The Mystics refused to shake the hands of the Fever players after the game. This league is just ate up with class. The classless players and acts across this league.
By the final buzzer, the Mystics weren't just defeated, they were exposed. And the Fever, they didn't just win. They announced their identity to the league. A team that protects its own, a team that doesn't break, and a team led by more than one alpha. Yes, Caitlin Clark may be the headline, but Sophie Cunningham just proved she's the heartbeat.
Sophie Cunningham just got through by a rookie. This is the worst part of the WNBA. It is. The smiles afterward, let's get negative. These people are loving this. They are already now attacking Sophie Cunningham. Oh, they're mad. The MAGA Barbies got them angry. Need Kiki to whack her again. They're cheering on violence against this basketball player.
Like, we got to make sure that we're not putting Caitlin at risk for injury. We're not putting our team in a position, where we're thinking short term and not long term. It's a long season, 4 more games than last season. So we want to make sure that we're extra cautious and health and wellness first and foremost. And honestly, it's been one day at a time. How she's reacted to treatment, how she's reacted to workouts. So positive progress is being made, but we can't be short-sighted.
What the Mystics tried to do was break Sophie Cunningham, but what they really did was build a beast. This wasn't just a game, it was a warning shot to the rest of the WNBA. You come for one of us, you deal with all of us. And if Sophie Cunningham is playing like this now, just imagine what's coming next. Because this Fever squad isn't just here to play. They're here to take over.